This video is created for informational and entertainment purposes only. All statements made reflect the speaker's personal opinion.
You know, after 911, man, I used to just harass this man, this Muslim guy. I mean, I was just a horrible person, honestly. I was in shock. I was just like, what just happened? What I noticed, one of the biggest things I noticed with Christianity was there was an on and off switch. You know, all I knew that was something that my heart desired was true worship. Where, you know, you're around your brothers and their behavior is the same inside and outside of the masjid. We're not pretending, it's real, and then they hold you accountable. It's like there's no women there. This is like a hidden treasure. This is something that, I mean, again, that I've searched for my whole life. This is for mankind. Oh, this is the truth. This is when people pursue the truth. I'm a convert now.
Mashallah.
You know.
Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, akhi. We have a great guest here, my brother Nate. I met him when we last time met each other.
Maybe close to a year ago at the masjid.
Mashallah. Could you introduce yourself briefly? Where are you from? Where you was born?
Again, my name is Nathan Powell, born in Memphis, Tennessee. Came up here when I was about 13 years old. I'm 50 now. Came up to Portland and moved to Vancouver.
What did you believe in that time when you before Islam?
Well, I was raised as Christian.
Mm-hmm.
A majority of my family are Christians, especially down south. As a young man, I didn't know anything about Islam. It was never mentioned in the family.
Who was the first Muslim that you met in your life, and what was the conversation between you and him?
I'm not exactly sure who was the first Muslim, but my first acknowledgement of Islam was the Nation of Islam.
Oh,
You know, as we grew up, we studied about Malcolm X and certain holidays that came up. You know, we celebrated Malcolm X. I'm not sure exactly what holidays those are, but there was things that came up that was Islam. So to us, for me at the time, Islam was the Nation of Islam.
oh, there you go.
I didn't know about the Islam as I know it today.
How did you hear about Islam in general?
Well, as far as true Islam, the first time that I heard about it was through my son. He was on the same search that we all, you know, originated from, trying to figure out the truth. And at the time, I was Christian, but I wasn't practicing Christianity. And my son, you know, he was on a journey, and he was bringing a lot of new things to the table as far as belief and things that made sense. You know, again, today, as I know it, he was giving me dawah. At the time, I didn't know, but it struck it brought up a lot of questions as far as my own belief. It made me question some of the questions that I dealt with just generally inside of my head. It started tapping into those questions that I've always had, but never had the courage to say it out loud.
So, what kind of questions he asked you that time?
Well, one of the biggest thing was, you know, who do you worship? You know, and again, in Christianity, we were taught, you know, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. And if we're truly concerned about our afterlife, we want to make sure that we're praying to the person that can, to the right person.
Yeah.
You know, and when I was young, there was confusion there, but I was afraid to ask anybody because I didn't want to seem dumb, you know, stupid or ignorant, because I didn't understand like everybody else. I didn't want to be an outcast. So, you know, I just went along with it. When my son introduced me to Islam, it opened up that door for me, you know, where I started thinking, okay, I'm not the only one that's thinking like this.
You know, in Arabic, in Islam, we have a word like adab, like manners. How he approached to you, your son in general, like did he make a dawah by the knowledge? What would usually catches your attention maybe the knowledges that surprised you, that Islam has the answers and everything? I don't know. Oh, what do you think?
To be quite honest with you, we there were some challenges because I had a little bit of pushback. I almost felt like he was forcing it on me. And there was a couple of times I had to correct him. But I think once he caught on to the mannerism part, things started going a lot smoother, and I was more open to hear him. And then over time, I did notice that his mannerism did change. It became attractive. My son, he kind of was out there in the world, and now I'm seeing, let me say this, as a parent, you always have that natural concern with your kids and the things that they get involved in,
Yes, yes,
and get involved with. So what I started noticing is that he was more at home. He was more at the masjid. So it took away that stress. It took away that worry, that anxiety, not completely, but, for the most part, it was a lot better than what it was before he ran into Islam or started converting.
What do you see? What did you see? Like, what has changed
With him or me?
with him?
I mean, honestly, I think just for the natural fact that he's focusing on one God was the biggest change that I've seen. Again, him not out in the crowd, him, taking time to read the Quran and to learn Arabic. I'm seeing this thing that has a hold of my child, something that I couldn't even do myself with him. I'm seeing him, get up in the morning, for Fajr prayer, 5 o'clock in the morning, tell me he's going to the masjid. And at that time, I really didn't understand. I'm thinking to myself, what in the world could be happening at the masjid at 5 in the morning? I'm starting to see that party life. I'm starting to see that these things are no longer priority to him. He doesn't care about being at the next event. So yes, definitely, I've seen the transition.
Could you tell us what's the difference? How many times people going to the church?
Well, for most Christians, Sunday is the day of worship. Wednesday is the day of they do Bible study. This is something that's kind of like traditionally known. But as far as practice, there really wasn't a true practice. There wasn't a specific way of doing anything. There wasn't a lot of discipline. With Christianity, and not to mock them, but, you can have two Christians, but three different beliefs. Or you can have two Christians that, one might believe in Trinity, the next one may not. So again, this is what caused the confusion. What I noticed, one of the biggest things I noticed with Christianity was there was an on and off switch. It all depended on who you were around. If you're at church, then your Christianity switch is on. As soon as you leave the church, it's off. I grew up in a Christian family, so I was able to see within my family where the family, once we get to the church, then there's no cursing, no bad behavior, the mannerism changes. And once we left the church, it was back to normal. I mean, grandma throwing a shoe at you and cursing you out, and not speaking bad of my grandma, but this is how we was raised. So we began to mock that behavior. So for us and me growing up as a Christian, I learned to mimic what I saw. So, I wasn't consistent with going to church, but I knew how to act when I got to the church.
So tell me the first experience when you went to the mosque, and who invited you to the mosque?
It was funny though. My first experience was with my son, and he said, "Dad, come on to the mosque." It was Juma. So Juma is a day that we worship on a Friday, and he, to be honest with you, he just threw me out there. I didn't know anything about the prayer. I didn't know anything, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to ask you, like, for example, when he told you, like, hey, Dad, we're gonna go tomorrow, or he told you in advance, like after, like, before, like 1 week or something like that?
If I remember correctly, he had been trying to get me going for a few weeks, and I kept putting him off. And then finally, of course, I gave in to it.
Yeah, yeah.
And
What did you feel before and after? What did you feel before? Tell me, like, about attending mosque for the first time. What did you expect?
what I expected was church.
Okay, there you go.
What I expected was to walk in the building, and there was going to be pews, places where you sit down.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting to take my shoes off.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so
I
for
like
me,
the details.
yeah, so for me, it was just another form of church, what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But when I got there, and again, I just followed the lead. So I just watched him and I watched other people. And when I left, it was amazing.
Okay.
It was amazing. Just to see the discipline, to see true worship, to see all men in there for one purpose.
There you go. There was only men's, right?
Only men.
Only men. Okay.
And Allah knew that was something that my heart desired, was true worship. That was something I struggled with in the church. And I won't go into details, but that was a struggle in church. There's a lot of distractions. So for me to be around other men and we're all in there for one purpose was amazing. To listen to the Imam speak, and he's not yelling and screaming and sweating, and it's not this entertainment that I'm used to, because I'm used to with the church, the hooping and hollering and the sweating and the grunting and making different noises. That's what I was used to. But to see the discipline in him and to see him deliver the message in a way where I could receive it was absolutely amazing. So that first experience, I mean, literally, I was in shock for probably the next 2 or 3 days.
Shock, really?
I was in shock. I was just like,
SubhanAllah.
what just happened?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Okay,
was
there-
like, what was that? And really, it was something that I desired.
Yes.
I mean, as long as I can remember. I mean, and I mean that literally.
Yeah.
When I was young, I always had this desire to know who God was. I always had this desire of what was true worship. Like, when I say true worship, I'm not talking about just, a regular prayer that, we do at the mosque. I'm saying, what is worship that comes from the heart? How does it feel to be truly connected? And this is what I received in the masjid. What is true brotherhood? Where you're around your brothers and their behavior is the same inside and outside of the masjid. We're not
Not pretending, right?
we're not pretending. It's real, and then they hold you accountable. If they see you, whether it's backbiting or they see, you could be, in a wrong formation in prayer and something they're not used to. These brothers come to you and ask you about it, or they give you reminders. I wasn't used to that. I was used to being criticized. That's what I was used to. So all this was like new to me. And to be quite honest with you, it was very attractive.
Yeah.
Very attractive.
Did you ask, like, where is the women's at? Where they are? Why
I did.
they're not coming, right?
I did. And I don't know if I asked that question, but eventually I learned that there was that they keep the women separated. And that was one of the things that I talked about for a while. I mean, that was like the highlight of it. It was like, there's no women there. This is
Something.
This is like a hidden treasure.
There you go.
This is something that, I mean, again, and that I've searched for my whole life. I've seen so much corruption in the church, and of course, everybody is held accountable for their own actions. You know, so I'm not saying it was the church that provoked this bad behavior, because again, we're all responsible for our own action. But in the church, it made it a lot easier to be distracted.
I see,
You know, it wasn't just the women; it was also this status that these guys had. When I say that, I mean, like, what type of car are you driving outside? Oh, he's driving that, you know.
Oh, the conversations.
Yeah, yeah, you
had just on
know,
it.
or what type of shoes you have on, you know. And again, going back to the shoes, that was amazing because there was no status in the masjid. There was,
There you go. Shoes off,
yeah,
right at the very beginning.
yeah,
I'm like, why?
yeah,
Shoes off.
yeah. You know, I mean, like literally, you know, in the church, there were in gator shoes, and you know, I mean, not to be disrespectful, but it's hard to tell a Christian from a pimp. You know what a pimp is?
Yes, I know.
It's and no disrespect, but it's very hard to tell the difference because they both dress the same, and they're both chasing the same thing, which is a status.
Oh,
You know, so it was hard for me to distinguish the difference.
good.
You know, and again, in the church they had like this slick talk. We call it slick talk. You know, slick talk is when, you know, you what's the best way of describing it? You talk in a way that manipulates or persuades a person to think how you think. You know, so you have, you know, like a man to say something to a female and say, "Oh, you look good today," and that, you know, kind of get her all warm and fuzzy. Or, you know, you might look at the pastor and say, "Hey, man, you sure look good today, man. You know, you was sharper than a thumbtack." You know, there's a lot of that talk in the church.
Oh,
there's
they pay attention to this.
Exactly. Exactly. And with the masjid, man, I mean, it's hard to put it in.
Who approached you to first time except your son in the masjid? Who approached you, like, was asking questions? Hey, like, to ask your name and where you're from?
Well, that's a good question because, of course, we're in Ramadan now, and the brother that's the imam there that's doing the prayers. So last year, you know, I'm sitting in my driveway, and my son tells me, "Dad, you got to get connected more with the masjid." So long story short, I started going to the masjid more during Ramadan of last year, which was my first Ramadan.
Yeah.
And so I didn't understand who he was. You know, I just kind of knew that he was in a leadership position. So I thought, and I didn't know that he was a visitor. So I was like, let me connect with that man and, you know, ask him, "Hey, man, I'm looking for a mentor," right?
Yeah.
So again, long story short, I went to him and I said, "Hey, man, I'm looking for some guidance." And I think it's Brother Ahmed.
I know him.
Man, that guy. He's a good guy.
Yes.
So he kind of was standing in the background listening, and he grabbed my phone, and he just put his phone number in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and this is like a year ago. Again, it was Ramadan, and from that point on, man, we've been close, man. He actually works with me and everything, but you know, I consider him as a mentor. He does correct me. He teaches me a lot. There's a lot of guidance through that brother, man. May Allah bless him for all his good deeds and his effort that he has put into me. We've had some good conversation, and he's corrected me where sometimes my pride hurt, but I knew that it was coming from a good place. But he was the first brother that came to me and helped me. And he said to me one day that he had been watching me. You know, he said he watched me come to masjid. He kind of watched me stick to myself.
I'm watching to you too, brother.
Yeah.
Always.
And he said he prayed to Allah that me and him connect.
Mashallah,
and he said he was listening to the conversation, and man, I got goosebumps right now. But yeah, he was there, man.
When we see brothers who reverted to Islam, we wish them only best things. You know what I mean? What was your thoughts about, like, color diverse, you know, in the mosque?
Well, again, so, you know, with the Nation of Islam, you know, they have the Malcolm X movie.
Yeah.
And then when Malcolm X, when he was in the Nation of Islam, and then he traveled to Mecca, and he said he's seen Muslims of all colors. So when I seen that in the mosque, it was a reminder of the movie, and it gave me that feeling, and not just the feeling, but it gave me the understanding. Okay, this is what he meant, because again, in Christianity, I don't know if it's purposely, but it's always been divided into different races, different colors, and such and such.
Yes.
So even to this day, to be honest with you, it still surprises me.
Uh-huh.
It still surprises me. Like sometimes when I'm sitting down in Juma, and I try not to stare at people,
Yeah.
but I'm amazed, and for me it shows me how strong this religion is. This is for mankind. This is not for a particular race. If anybody come from, if you have a person coming from this side of the world and this side of the world, and this one thing is bringing them together to one understanding, that's how powerful this thing is. This is the truth. This is when people pursue the truth. So I get to see the example of people pursuing the truth. So for me to this day, and hopefully I get a little bit better, I'm still amazed on how many different backgrounds people come from. I mean, even in my own African American culture, there was an imam that died just recently, and so he was a African American Muslim. This is the mosque out in North Portland. And so when they did his memorial, I mean, again, even with my own people, I was amazed that these people are practicing Islam, the true Islam.
There you go.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, these are my people, and they're standing in the truth. Because a lot of times with our people, it's hard for us to think outside of our own perimeters, to think outside of the box, because that seed is deep in us,
You mean you're talking about Black Americans?
Yeah, Black Americans. So when us in my culture, and I speak just for my myself,
Yes.
and my perspective, but you're an outcast. When like to this day, I'm an outcast in my family.
Oh, I got you. I had a question, if you don't mind to ask you.
That's fine.
You remember you told me last time that you had a coworker that he was a Muslim,
Oh, yeah.
and is that okay if you?
Yeah, that's
share?
fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So you mean the one that I bumped heads with?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think his name was Abdul, and this is during 9/11, and I think at the time I might have been an active Christian at the time, where I was actually going to the church on a normal basis, and
How old you were at that time?
So I'm 50 now. I had to be, I would say, about 25 years old.
24, pretty young.
Yeah,
you had a lot of power.
Yeah.
Energy.
So after 9/11, so we used to, so like Intel have these things called clean rooms, and we used to build the clean rooms for them. So we, there was like light fixtures and stuff. So, there was things that were, like I had to cut these lens, and I'm only telling you this to kind of give you a little bit more details on how I used to act towards them. So these lens were these tall, white, thin, pieces of plastic. So, after 9/11, man, I used to just
watch.
No, I used to harass this man, this Muslim guy. So I used to take I used to make them look like twin towers. And I stand beside each other, and I yell his name, hey, and that's like, you did this, and then, I used to have like this white powder, and I used to call it anthrax, and I mean, I was just a horrible person, honestly, and not giving myself any excuses, but this was normal for a non-Muslim. This is if you did this, even doing this in front of everybody, they thought it was funny, you know.
So how the people of like, there was a bunch of people, right?
Yeah,
Coworkers.
yeah.
How did they react when
Oh, they loved it. I was entertaining
Really?
them. Oh yeah,
Subhanallah.
yeah. I was entertaining. And so again, I'm kind of like a goofy type dude anyway, and you know, I always been like a comedian, always crack jokes. So
Yes, yes,
you
yes.
know, if it wasn't him, it'd be somebody else. It just happened to be 911.
Yeah.
I had material to work with, you know.
I see.
So anyway, you know, he actually, to be honest with you, when I look back to those days, he actually handled that pretty good. He did, yeah, because I mean, he could have easily told on me. I could have got fired. But one thing that really got my attention was him praying.
Uh-huh.
You know, there's times where I'm just doing my work, my job, and you know, and I look out the corner of my eyes, and I see him in the corner praying.
Oh.
You know, and at the time I didn't understand, you know, but today I obviously have a better understanding. But man, this guy was committed to his prayers.
So basically, he didn't like went somewhere, disappear. He was right there, but just was
Yeah,
at the side of the building. Like
yeah. So we were inside the building, and you know, there was like little pockets where it was like secluded areas, and he just found a place that he can pray in, you know. And so, I don't know if you want me to mention a dream I had recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just recently I had a dream. This is probably about a month ago, maybe a little bit more, but he came to me in a dream. The same guy, this Abdul guy, and of course I was dealing with some embarrassment, some shame, like big time in the dream, and I was getting to the point where I'm trying to explain to him, and he just kind of like shook his head, like no need to explain. You know, like you've made it, you arrived.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, for me, I believe that things happen for a reason, because when I look back to those days, I have a better understanding on how the world see Islam. You know, today, you know, because today I am a Muslim,
There you go.
and now, you know, I have a responsibility today to correct people. And another thing, not just to correct people, but to not be ashamed to be a Muslim, you know. And even though the world, you know, they might be against you, but we only need one person for us, one, and that's Allah. That's it.
Yes.
You know, and that man, he stood on that, you know. And today, I mean, honestly, again, like I said, I think it was part of the plan, because I'm a convert now.
Mashallah.
You know. And again, and I don't want to over elaborate, but when you look at even with the 911 or the, you know, what happened in was it New York that it happened in? Now you can see the lies behind it.
Yeah.
You know, now and that makes me feel even more ignorant. You know, because now the truth is starting to come out, and of course the Muslims, you know, our brothers took the hit for it. Our belief, our Islam took the hit for that. You know.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of the ignorance, and you see what part that you played or part that I played in it. And today it's embarrassing, but I'm okay with being embarrassed. Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah, I've seen just recently when I come to your shop, there was a lady, and I was approaching to your shop. And you just said, Assalamu alaikum, brother. I'm like, wa alaikum assalam. Because when I'm working with customers, I'm trying to avoid like things like Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam, because it's affecting to my business. Like, they like, oh, this guy is Muslim, you know? They're not going to hire me anymore. I was, same thing with you. I was like, he's just reverted. I don't want him to, like, you know, set you up or something like that. But you like Salam alaikum, I was like, wow, mashallah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my belief, you know, again, is that all this is just temporarily.
Yeah.
You know, this is not our final destination. You know, so for me, I mean, I say this is kind of emotional, but if I was proud to be a Christian, then I should be proud to be a Muslim. You know what I mean? If I, you know, as a Christian, if I was
You were proud to be a Christian.
I was.
And now you're proud to
Yeah.
be a Muslim.
Yeah. So
Mashallah.
if I, and not only that, but even when I was out there in the world,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, like, I used to be a 49er fan, right? The football team.
Ah, okay.
And I mean, I had 49er everything. I even got 49er still on my wallet, on my keychain.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Of
I
course,
was,
it's a good comparison.
yeah, I mean, I was out there representing the 49ers, man. They were, I mean, 49ers was like a god to me.
There you go.
So if I'm out there representing, if I can do it over a football team, then don't Allah deserve even better?
Yeah.
Because I question the day, the day that I'm questioned, one of the questions might be, why did you deny me?
Yeah.
Why were you ashamed to say my name in front of people?
Yes.
So for example, I just dealt with something so my wife is Christian,
Mm-hmm.
and the church that she go to, I think that their pastor is a female.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just had an event last weekend, and I ended up going to the event, and I just found out her pastor was there.
Ah, her pastor.
Her pastor was there. My wife never introduced me to her pastor.
Why? For the reason.
I mean, that's a good question.
Uh-huh. Maybe he.
It's a good question, and it hurts, but it doesn't surprise me.
I see.
It does hurt, but it doesn't surprise me. But I also have some good people on my side.
Yeah.
I have people, like, sometimes when I go to barbecues, I have people tell me, I cook that on a separate grill. I didn't, or I put that to the side, or they'll make a dish for me that has no pork
There's
in it.
no pork. There you go.
Yeah. So I do have some good people that has
Supporting
you.
you.
Yeah, absolutely. And my wife do support me. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
My point of bringing that up was saying that there have to be some shame in there, because we've been married for 24 years, and anytime my wife is a part of something, she always introduced me to the people that her friends or whatever, but this time she didn't. And so it made me think, and I can't say it was shame, but there was something that prevented her from.
I mean, she's not ready yet, because she's not really into Islam. She doesn't know a lot of information. I think once she's got it, I think that's fine. I mean,
Yeah, and that's fine.
yeah, it's just need time, inshallah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to your journey to Islam. How did you end up becoming a Muslim, and how it went? Just explain me it in every aspects, in every detail. We need that.
We got enough time for this, man.
Yes.
So to start from the beginning, I've always had this voice in my head. That voice started out, I mean, literally when I was a little child, as far as back I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
And that voice always searched God, and it always questioned God. It always had this desire that needed to be fulfilled. Like, it was always something there that said, I want to know who God is. I want to know who the true God is. Growing up in the church, again, as far as I can remember, there was always, I listened. I listened to the pastor speak. I not only listen, but I pay attention visually. I've always been on this journey since I can remember. I mean, and that's being honest with you. Going to church, I had a lot of questions, and I used to think that I just couldn't ever understand. I used to just say, what, maybe I'm just not that smart, because it's just some things that make sense. And, I paid attention, even as a younger child, I paid attention to the adults' behavior. I have one auntie that, she was just a mean Christian, man. Like, if you're not going to church, man, she don't like you. If you're going to church, she was the sweetest person in the world. And for me, that just something wasn't right about that, And so, again, with Christianity, I was in and out. There was times where, in my life, I was like, okay, I got to do something better. I go to the church, and then, to be quite honest with you, I was just disappointed. Just the practice, and then there was a lot going on inside the church. I mean, when I say a lot, there was a lot. There was members, there was affairs, all types of affairs going on, and money being mishandled. So I get to, I got to see all that, and I always desired. I used to see people at the church, and to me it seemed like they was really connected to God, and I used to like, man, I want that so bad, you know, and gosh, there's something I keep thinking of and I keep forgetting. So anyway, there's times that I challenge myself to read the Bible from the beginning to end. I've done it a couple times, and some parts of the Bible is just disturbing. But again, I'm young. I'm like, this is God's word, so it has to be right, But one thing that really got my attention in the book of Matthew, Luke, John, and Mark, these are 4 different people telling the same story. And it never made sense to me, why was there such a difference between the 4 books? And the pastor used to say, these are these people's perspective. This is their perspective. I'm like, well, if they was all there, how can it be so different? It didn't make sense. And when I say a difference, I mean, like, there's a part in the Bible where Simon's carrying the cross, and then in another book is Jesus carrying the cross. And I'm like, how can they get it mixed up, like that? Then one of the biggest things that got me when I was young is when, Jesus, peace be upon him, he says, he's on the cross and he says, Father, why have you forsaken me? For me, I mean, these are things that were like red flags to me. Like, wait a minute, this is confusing. And even to this day, I'm still trying to understand. So in Christianity, is he God, or is he the Son of God? These are questions that I had, that to this day, being 50 years old, it's never been answered. Some say both, and I'm like, well, how does that make sense? So longer story short, about 4 years ago, when COVID hit, I just stopped eating pork. I had did a workout eating pork, and 2 days later I'm burping up pork still, and I'm like, something's not right about this meat, So I stopped eating pork. Then I started growing my beard, just out of the blue. I just started growing my beard, and going to the church, especially the church that I was going to, I used to talk to my wife, and I used to tell her, I said, it's too many distractions in that church. And I tell her, I said, we're up and down, we're praising God, and, I'm a man, and I'm naturally attracted to women. And I'm telling my wife this, I'm saying, I got a female in front of me, and it's hard for me to concentrate, to be honest with you. Eventually, I just stopped going to church. I said, you know what, too much. It's not putting me on the straight path. It's only making me dive deeper into some things, And so, I got to the point where, and I remember this really, quite clearly. I remember praying to God one day, and, let me back up a little bit. I remember thinking to myself, like, one day I have to die. I have probably over 30 friends that have passed away. So, and I'm missing some of the story. Don't want to go into details, but I used to be involved in a lot. I was involved in street gangs, drug dealing. I was involved with a lot, and so I was surrounded around death. To me, death was real. So it got to a point where I started questioning myself, like, when you die, where are you going? Because you're going to die. So where are you going? And if you die, but if you want to go to the right place, in the Trinity, which one of these persons, these people, these beings are going to grant you the keys to paradise? Which one's going to put you on the path to paradise? Now, to me, this is like gambling. I don't want to just pray to God. I'm saying this as a Christian because they say put it in Jesus' name. But then yet I'm thinking, well, isn't God above Jesus? So and then you have in the Bible that says that our God is a jealous God. So if I'm praying to Jesus, would God be jealous and be angry with me? And then I'm like, oh yeah, don't forget about the Holy Ghost. So you got these three people and you say, I just want to be right. I just want to make sure that I'm praying to the right person. So finally I got to a point where I just told God, it was a personal prayer. I was by myself and I said, God, at this point, and keep in mind, this is before Islam, I said, God, at this point, I said, I'm no longer praying to Jesus, peace be upon him. I'm no longer praying to the Holy Ghost. And I said, I'll take my chance. And if I'm wrong, please correct me.
You ask basically dua.
Yeah.
To guide you.
Yeah, so I'm thinking to myself like, okay, if I'm wrong, because my love for God was tremendous and it still is. So I knew that he loved me enough to guide me in the right direction. And I knew that prayer was personal. I wasn't praying in a group. It was between me and him. And I knew that if I was doing wrong, because I've been corrected by God plenty of times, and I knew that this is a time that he wouldn't forsake me. He wouldn't just turn his back on me. So my prayer was authentic. It was saying, God, I'm ready.
It's like desperate, basically, like question, like you asking God, please help me.
It's a cry.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a cry. It's crying out saying, I'm at this point of my life where I'm ready. I'm ready. After that, we have family functions. And, one of the things that got my attention, and this is just, I guess you would say my fitra, but I'm listening to the prayers.
What does mean fitra in English?
For me, just to keep it simple, fitra is that natural attraction to the one true God. It's what you were born with before it was corrupted. Yes. That's what for me in layman's term, that's what it means for me. So of course, keep in mind I ask for guidance, right? Mm-hmm. I'm listening to the prayers of the Christians. We pray before we eat. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, I'm listening to every single word, and I'm waiting for them to say God. They never say God in the prayer.
They say Jesus.
Just Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And I'm like, where's God? So for me, that was part of my prayers being answered. Mm-hmm. He allowed me to listen.
Yeah.
And and in the end, I'm like, well, where was God in that prayer? And then I listened to the things that they pray about, and I'm like, this, why are we praying for you to get another pair of rims for your car? And I know I'm kind of being, but we're praying for stuff that really don't matter. Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, this just can't be right. And then I prayed one time. And this is during my journey. And at the end of my prayer, I said, instead of saying Jesus' name, I said in God's name.
There you go. Uh-huh. And what people
reacted?
Oh, man. People reacted?
But they didn't do it. It was weird how they reacted. Well, I'm not going to say they. It was a certain person.
Oh, so, yeah.
And so keep in mind, my son, he was into Islam at the time. And he wasn't giving me dawah yet. This is just my own journey. So I listened to my son. Mm-hmm. He's talking to this guy, and the guy said, well, if a person don't end their prayer in Jesus' name, then it ain't worth nothing. That's what he's saying. But he's talking indirectly to me. Yeah. And honestly, I didn't care.
His friend, you said?
Yeah, he was my wife's cousin. Uh-huh. He's not talking to me.
Yeah, but he's just saying, you can't hear it.
Yeah, and then finally it got to a point where, my son started coming around. So my son had been back and forth to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't this shop right here, but it was my other shop. Mm-hmm. And my son had no place to go, when he got back in town. He had a place to go. I don't know what happened with that. Mm-hmm. So I told him, I said, you can come, spend some time at the shop. I won't charge you rent, you can just be comfortable. And so every morning when I got to the shop, my son is sitting there waiting for me. And, you know, we get into these long conversations. You know, me and my son, man, we can talk some. And so we'd get into these long conversations. And, you know, I'm the type of person where I like to debate. I like to challenge people. And so we're talking about Christianity. We're talking about Islam. I'm starting to hear the answer to these questions now. So these questions that I had in Christianity, you know, he's giving me dawah, and I'm hearing answers, and I'm thinking, wow.
He's right away giving you answers.
Yeah.
Like, you've been searching these answers for
And,
all your life. Right?
Yeah. and I'm like, I'm getting goosebumps right now, man. I'm thinking to myself, like, this is it. Not Islam.
Yeah. But
here goes the answers.
yeah.
Like, there's no dispute. There's no debating. There's no disputing. This is what I've been searching for. This is it.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
This is it. And then it exposes the lies.
Yeah.
That's what it does. It exposes the lies. You know? Yeah. And so when he's telling me that there's only one true God, this is what I've been saying. This is what I wanted, you know? Yeah. And so it took a while though. You know, it took a while for me to actually come around, because how do I just drop everything that I'm doing and enter into this whole new realm that I know nothing about at all? And, you know, I don't even know who the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is. I don't even know who he is. And what I have heard and what I've seen is the same thing that I did when I was talking about the other brother. You know, I mean, I'm afraid that people are going to do me like I did other people, you know, when it came to Islam.
Yes.
You know, it's hard for me to go to somebody and say, well, you know, I've been talking to my son about Islam, you know, because I'm scared of their reaction. And it's hard to go to a Christian and say, well, you know, start telling them things like, you know, as far as the Trinity, like the Trinity was made up like 325 years after Jesus, you know, passed, was crucified, as they say, peace be upon him. It's hard to go to him and say, wait a minute, man, you guys been lied to. You know,
you don't have enough knowledges.
Exactly.
More confidence.
And again, you know, it's quite embarrassing to say this. I've never heard of the Quran. Never. If I've seen a Quran from a distance, if I have, it would have been a Bible to me. You know, I had no idea that this was the Allah's word. You know, I thought it was like put together, you know, like the Bible. I honestly thought it was another version of the Bible. That's what I thought. And this is as an adult. This is how I'm thinking as an adult. It finally got to a point where me and Nate, my son, we bumped heads. And I told him, I said, Nate, don't force anything on me, because this is what the Christians did. You know, they never gave me a choice. They said, believe in this, don't question it. You know, everything else is a mystery. You know, if we don't have the answer, then it's a mystery. That's what I was told. Yeah. Don't question it. Just have faith. That's what they used to use it all the time. Just have faith. Just believe in God. Yeah. But then also the Bible says, ask, seek, and knock. It says ask, and it should be answered. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and the door will be answered. So you're telling me not to do those three things, but the Bible tells me to do those things. You know, I'm asking, I'm seeking, I'm knocking. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to church and I'm questioning these people at the church. You know, I'm asking them. So, you know, there's a time where they threw an event. Yeah. And it was like, it cost like $25. And so I asked one of the pastors, I said, so what about the people that can't afford it? Yeah. You know? And I said, so you mean to tell me they don't get their blessings? You know? And then he's, you know, in church they have this saying that the price has already been paid. That's a Christian saying, meaning that Jesus Christ died for our sins. And I used to ask him, I said, well, if the price has already been paid, why do we keep paying? You know, I used to ask him these questions. I was the headache in the church. I was the one that ask questions. And I found this out later. I'll give you more details. I found out this later when I became Muslim, that I was the headache in the church because I asked questions. You know, but I was the type of person, I challenged everything. It didn't make sense. I'm not the type of person that sit in something and I can see something wrong and I'm just saying, let's just go with it. You know, I always say, well, why are we doing this? Or why is this happening? Or how come this? Or how? And I became a nuisance in the church. And they started talking about me. You know, so anyway, fast forward into Nate, my son. You know, he's giving me this shahada, and finally I said, Nate, don't force me because it's bringing up some old feelings. It's like triggering me. You know, it's like, you know, if you keep forcing on me, I'm gonna push away. And he was guided because all of a sudden he just relaxed. There you go. And we started talking, kind of like you and I talk when we start cracking jokes. And every time, you know, I can feel the pressure rising. I said, Nate. I said, I said, just keep doing what you've been doing. And finally, one day we went to a restaurant and he asked me, what do I believe in? And I told him. He said, Dad, I think you're ready. And I didn't know what shahada was. Honestly, I didn't. You know, he's like, Dad, I think you should take your shahada. And I didn't even know the word at the time. Okay. All right. So I took my shahada right there in that restaurant.
Right there?
Yeah.
Were there any other people like?
There wasn't, and that's we'll talk about that later because I questioned that too, and one of the brothers gave me an answer, but I took my shahada right there in that restaurant, man. You know, and it was a rough path.
In Arabic and in English?
I did both.
Okay.
Yeah, I did both. But it was a rough path. The reason why I said, because I asked the same thing just recently. I was like, should I had some more witnesses there? And one of the brothers said, you know what, man? You have the best witness that anybody can have, which is Allah. You know? But I also, because I want to get a certificate and I need to get a date. And at the time, it really, honestly, and this is me being honest with you, I didn't know how big it was. You know, I didn't know that I was testifying, you know, my faith, you know, but I knew that Nate had said enough for me to believe in it. You know, when I started looking at the Quran, because I remember him telling me that it was 1,440 years old and, you know, it's never been changed. I'm like, come on, bro.
What are you talking about, right?
Yeah, I'm like, come on, man. You know, like, that don't even make sense. You know what I'm saying? You know, and then he's telling me, you know, these are the words of Allah and I'm like, somebody had to write it. You know, these are the things that I'm saying. And, you know, so when so he gave me my first Quran. And I don't say this shamefully. I say this because of how much I've grown. When I first got my Quran, man, that Quran sat around. It was here. It was there. It was there. It was there. It was there. One time I did notice that it was gone. And I found out Nate had came and took it.
Okay.
And I was offended. I was like, nope, you bring it back. And keep in mind, I wasn't even reading it. But I said, no, you bring it back. And I got it back too. And so, and even with the prayers, this is how much ignorance I had. I didn't know anything about Islam. So with the 5 prayers, I knew that there was 5 prayers. But I thought you just, you know, like Christianity. You just pick a time.
Yes.
You know, hey, you know, like, hey.
Randomly, let's do it.
You know, as long as we get 5 in a day, and I'm not even praying the prayer. I'm just, I'm, you know, I'm not prostrating. I'm praying. I'm doing the Christian thing.
By your way, right?
I'm doing it my way, you know, and so,
what the Nate said when you...
He didn't know. I was embarrassed, though, to say anything because... And I don't blame nobody but myself, but I was kind of just thrown in there. You know, I didn't have a lot of guidance in the beginning. You know, it was, you know, sometimes, you know, once a person, and I have a big heart when it comes to reverts. Because I remember how it felt. And I remember how some of the ways, and I'm not saying the brothers did anything wrong, but I remember how I was treated in some situations. You know, it was an embarrassing situation. And so I was just thrown in there. It was like, okay, he's a Muslim now. Let me move to the next person. You know, that's kind of how I took it. Like, you know, and don't get me wrong, I had some good conversation like with my son and things like that. But really, it was my responsibility, though, to learn. You know, and so one day I just picked up the Quran. You know, I hit a couple of Jumas and they saying, you know, you're supposed to be reading the Quran. And I'm like, okay, let me pick the Quran up. You know what I'm saying? So I'm reading the Quran, and I remember thinking to myself, because I'm comparing it with the Bible. You know, so a lot of things I'm like, you know, but then it jumped from this to this. I'm used to telling a story and it have like a timeline, like this history. It really didn't have it wasn't formatted like the Bible. You know what I mean? So it took me a minute. But what I learned though with the Quran, it gets straight to the point. It's not there to make you feel better, and you know what I'm saying, it's straight to the point. This is a guide. You know what I'm saying? This is the path to paradise, you know? This is the path, that same thing that I desired when I was a Christian as far as being close to God. This is a straight guide to it, you know? And so, and then I eventually learned, okay, 5 prayers come at a certain time. And then I start understanding the times that it came in, you know? And I start practicing more of that. And then I learned, you know, the beginning of the prayer, I know in Arabic, I still have to learn a lot more. I know some in English. And I do have to do better with that. This is what I prayed for. You know, as a child. As a child, this is what I prayed for. And all I prayed for was the truth. No confusion.
Yeah, I think he prepared you step by step.
Absolutely.
When you look at the back, it's always like that. You're like, if I was like 25 years old, I wouldn't accept it or something like
Absolutely.
that. That time, it's hard to accept it. You know?
Absolutely.
You're young and everything, but when you grow, you have experience. Now, even your son converted to Islam, subhanAllah. And
before me.
Before you, yes, subhanAllah.
And the thing about Islam, when you enter the truth, a lot of things don't matter anymore. You know, the things that used to be heavy on you, that you used to just lose sleep over, it's not as heavy as it used to be. And I say that, and hopefully I say it the right way, but even when it comes to marriage, I know brothers don't like me saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I choose Islam over my wife. Because at the end of the day, I'm Muslim, and I worship only one God. You know, now, however, you know, Allah is guiding my wife. That's how, maybe it's through me, dawah through me, maybe it's however, I don't know, because she did go to a brunch with me, or dinner with me, a reverse dinner with me. But at the end of the day, I'm held accountable for myself. You know, it don't mean that you just push other people away and be selfish, but at the end of the day, I'll be the one that's being questioned. You know, Allah asked me, were you given the message? Were you given the truth? Now, some people, and I know this, I know at least one brother that's Muslim. He's back and forth from Muslim to Christianity, Muslim Christianity. And why is he doing that? Because his wife is a Christian.
Oh, there you go. It's a big fitna.
It is.
Fitna for whole. Yeah.
You know, and I mean, literally, like, 1 minute he just sent me a text message in the last 2 weeks. He might even sent me one today. He still go to the church with his wife, and he's Muslim. And you know, and I don't want to go into the brother business, but I could see the battle. I could see it. And so what he's doing, what we have the tendency to do is to satisfy our wives. You know, and I refuse to do that. Because again, when you get something, when you know that God has answered your prayers, then you guard that. You know, you hold it close to you. You know, regardless of what anything else is happening. And, you know, kind of like you said, you know, with the me assalamu alaikum in the public, that's me holding it close. You know, saying that you love me, you guided me close enough, or good, you guided me enough for me to understand that you're in control of all of this. You know, I believe in you. You know, if I get penalized for saying assalamu alaikum, you know, I think it's in the Quran, like what Allah takes from you, he replaced with something better. So I lost a lot of friendships, not just with just Islam, but some with me converting, I lost a lot of friendships, right? But guess what? I get to be around the brothers.
MashaAllah.
I get to see real friendship.
Real friendship.
You know what I'm saying? I get to worship. Now, see, my other friends, we just, we kicked it. We did our thing and, party, blah, blah, blah. We never worshiped together.
Yeah, that's the big difference.
Now these brothers that I'm with today, we get to party, eat, and we get to worship together.
All inclusive.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? I've never, I tell my wife this, man, I've never had brotherhood like this.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Never. This brotherhood, the community is amazing. What other place do you know that I've been to Minnesota. I go to their Juma when I'm down there. I go to, I'm from Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee. Made it to Juma down there. Brothers just welcoming.
MashaAllah, anywhere. That doesn't
anywhere
matter.
you go.
Anywhere doesn't mean like you from other church or you from this church or another church,
Yeah, when you go to the churches, man, you're afraid that you're an outsider and people are like, who are you? And every mosque that I ever been to, I've never been questioning why are you here? Because I think we all know why we're there. You know what I mean?
Let me tell you one story. I just remember. There was a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I think. I went with my wife to the Forks, Washington, very famous. One of the movie was shooting there, and we just stopped by the shop, where you can buy souvenirs and everything, stuff like that. And the group of people, young people, they just arrived, and they just pushed to the signal, to the horn, and I took it as a disrespect because my wife was there, and I just approached to him and just started yelling them. And one of them said, "Assalamu alaikum." And I start smiling. Wa alaikum assalam. That's it. No more questions.
That's good.
I just said, "Wa alaikum assalam." I didn't even ask why you guys. They were young. They was hanging out inside.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, no problem."
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
That's one of the
American brothers.
Yeah. And that's one of the great things, man. It's like how we identify each other, man.
Yeah,
it's like when you see
one word, that's it.
Yeah. It's like when you see when we see each other, man, you get this feeling like that's my brother. You know, when you see the women, that's my and not only that, but I think one of the biggest things that, in Islam for me is it doesn't matter where I'm at and who I'm around. I'm a Muslim.
Yes.
I don't act a certain way when I'm around this group of people. And don't get me wrong, I'm goofy. I laugh. I crack jokes.
Yes.
I make mistakes, but I'm always aware of that Allah is watching me.
Yeah.
I mean, the same thing like with the prayers. I don't. I could tell everybody I'm doing 5 prayers a day. Yeah, and that's why I said, well, some people talk about their favorite football team.
Yeah.
Some people talk about cars. I talk about Islam. It's something that I love.
What's the point?
But when I first entered Islam, man, I was on fire. I was on fire, man. I was condemning everybody. I was sending people to hell. I was like, "You're going to hell. You're going to hell. You're going. No. Come here. You're going to hell."
You're coming.
But this is the importance of the practice and reading the Bibles and reading the Hadiths, and this is why it should be a daily thing, because the more you read, the more knowledge you gain. The more knowledge you gain, the more wisdom that you gain.
When you saw people that they have memorized the whole Quran, small kids, or what was your opinion about that?
I'm jealous. I'm jealous. I'm like, man, and I know that, we all have our own journeys, our own paths. But do you know how much hardship I could have saved just knowing Islam when I was a child.
Yeah.
You know, I listened to these kids. You know, I went to one of the mosques out there in Beaverton, and these kids were answering things better than me. You know, I'm like,
You feel like you are the kid there,
yeah,
but,
man,
some
yeah, man. It's just, I'm like, but
me too, to be honest with you.
yeah, man, I'm like, what a gift. And then listening to, you know,
It's their parents, you know.
it's amazing.
Yeah, they working on it.
Man, it's amazing. And then listening to the imam at night when we're doing prayer, man, I'm like getting emotional now just thinking about it. You want to witness a miracle? Man, come to the masjid.
Yes.
Come to the masjid.
It's a big miracle. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Quran, yeah.
You show me any other religion that can do this. Just show me one.
So, yeah.
Just one. You know? And I'm open. I tell people I'm not closed-minded. So I'm open to all religion.
Yes.
But bring the proof, bring the evidence.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So if you know, I had I don't want to say an argument, kind of argument, but I had a debate with a Christian guy. And I told him, I said, let's sit down, let's compare notes. I said, I'll bring a reliable source, and you'll bring a reliable source, which means that you can't bring the Bible.
Yes.
It's not reliable.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I know it was, I could have said it better, but I was learning because I should have been inviting him to Islam, but it's not reliable. So my point, only reason why I'm saying this is, what other religion have these practices?
Yeah.
You know, what other religion fast for, 30 days like we're doing? You know, have a Ramadan. What other religion have respect for all the prophets, peace be upon them? You know, what other religion are following the original laws, when it comes to like pork? What other religion is actually doing this? The biggest thing is the practice. What religion do you know that's, praying 5 times a day, and doing the late night prayers and, saying, what other religion do you know that's doing any of this? So which for me makes more sense on why they don't like us, because you hate what you don't know. There's a jealousy there. They really envy us. Because they know that they're not doing what we're doing. They're not practicing. So again, with them reciting the Quran, what religion you show me one pastor that can recite one full chapter in the Bible, just one full chapter. Just show me one pastor. Now, when I'm in prayer, like we go tonight, the Tarawih prayer, show me one church. When you look behind you, you see rows and rows and rows of brothers praying on a Sunday night, or a Monday night, Tuesday night. Show me that. Just show me, and I'm open to listen. Yeah. And so that's the challenge that I have for a lot of people, that's Christians, is show me. Yeah. If it's a true religion, and you say it is what it is, then just show me. You have the opportunity to show me better. Yeah. You do. You have the opportunity, because I'm not closed-minded. I'm open to anything that you bring. Yes. So you know what's behind that door. You know what I'm saying? Yes. What you might see as a curse, it could be a gift to you. This might be what you've been looking for your whole life, like it was for me. Yes. When I opened that door. Yes. Okay. I opened that door. I said, okay, let's see what's behind this. Yes. And again, it was uncomfortable though. Like literally, it was uncomfortable. I was like, okay,
man, how I'm gonna handle it?
Yeah, I was like, well, maybe.
Okay, if it's true, how I'm gonna tell my kids, my wife, family, or nephews?
Oh man, I'm praying like this.
Yeah, at the beginning,
You
right?
know?
You told me that.
Yeah, man, I'm praying. I'm leaving the door shut. I'm whispering.
Yes.
I'm like, you know what I'm saying? My wife come upstairs. I'm like, huh, what's up? No. You know?
Yeah.
And now I'm saying, I'm about to pray.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Now I have a rug upstairs that I don't even pick up anymore. I used to pick them up and put it away.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's just laying the floor now. And then in the living room, I have a little traveling rug that I keep in my backpack. It just stay out right in the living room in the middle of the floor.
Oh, I see.
You know what I'm saying? When I leave, I take it with me. But if I know I'm gonna be doing my prayers there for the rest of the day,
Yes.
I don't even pick it up anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's no shame to it.
Yeah.
You know, and when even this morning, like I got up and did the Tahajjud prayer, right? You know, I tried to sleep in today. So honestly, sleeping in to me was to 3:55 today. You know, and I get up, man, no shame, man. Get up. You know, I took a shower and I went downstairs and did my prayer. You know what I'm saying? There's no shame.
So the question is, what was the major challenge that you faced after becoming a Muslim?
Being alone.
Oh, subhanallah.
Yeah, being alone. Just, you know, the last few holidays was me by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, I know it's not a pagan holiday, but it's still celebrated for the wrong reason. Those holidays, man, I was here at the shop cleaning up while the streets were empty. You know, I think that's the biggest challenge is being by yourself.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, my wife actually spent the night over her daughter's house, so I was at home by myself. You know,
Oh, subhanallah.
but it's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, of course, inshallah. Okay, tell me, Nate, how do you see the difference between Nate before Islam and after?
The Nate today is at peace.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the Nate today, before, was searching for peace. You know, there was no calmness to my spirit. Today, you know, I tell people, man, that I've searched for this. This peace my whole life, and today I'm willing to do what it takes to protect it. You know, before, again, you know, we talked about it already, but how I dealt with anxiety. You know, before, I mean, it was just there was no control, but today, you know, I'm able to have better control of it and deal with it in a respectful way. Even with mannerism, I've always had good manners, but I think they're even better now. There's still some stuff that I need to work on, but for the most part, yeah, it's gotten a lot better. Dealing with challenges is completely different today. You know, again, there's some things I know I have to work on, like procrastination, but I just don't let things get to me like they used to. As a matter of fact, man, I sleep very well. I sleep good. Yeah, when I'm asleep like before. It'd be all night tossing and turning. Oh, you know, I've had the best sleep in the last.
What was the reason why you?
Anxiety, too much on my mind.
Oh yeah.
The discipline is amazing.
Yes.
You know, that's one of the biggest things, discipline, you know. The old Nate didn't pray at all. You know, if he did pray, it was at my convenience, you know. So
wow.
It's
I see the difference.
Yeah.
Wow, mashallah.
Yeah, so it's a huge difference.
Mashallah.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things is being more open. You know, I was real close-minded originally, you know, especially with my kids. You know, I was the parent that, you know, just do what I say, you know. And today I actually take time to listen to them, you know, and it's created a different relationship with my kids. So some good, healthy stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Physically. it affected to your not just physical conditions, to your family as well. Even your daughter said that you should become a Muslim long time ago.
Yeah.
And then your relationship with your son becomes better because you guys more open.
Oh yeah, all my kids.
Yeah, mashallah.
And then another thing that now that you said it, even physically, my health.
Health, there you go.
You know, I don't know if you know, I used to weigh 400 pounds. Did I tell you that?
No.
Yeah, I used to weigh 400 pounds, man.
400 pounds?
Yeah, 400 pounds.
Pounds, wow. It's like maybe 150 or 200, no, like...
Today?
Exchanging to kilograms, I mean.
Yeah, I don't know the kilograms.
I think it's a lot, because 400...
I wore a size 40 pants today, 40.
Yeah.
I used to wear a 52.
Oh my God.
My shirts were 5X. This jacket
Yes.
used to be tight on me.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So it wasn't just Islam that because I started my weight loss journey a long time ago.
Yeah.
But Islam taught me more discipline.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to eating.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it makes it that much easier. So, you know, as far as the pork and everything else, it made it easier, you know, with the discipline, you know, and same thing like with Ramadan and then, you know, doing, you know, I fast throughout the year on Mondays and Thursdays, you know.
Wow.
So
2 days a week.
Yeah. So I do that. I've been doing that for the last year and a half, maybe, you know, so it taught me a lot of discipline, you know, same thing with, you know, with what you eat, you know, I mean, as far as, I mean, I would say what you eat, but I was more thinking about like, you know, like, just different products that you don't buy because of whatever reason, you know, so it keeps you away from stuff like Coca-Cola and, you know, so you know, it's the discipline, is what I would put almost at the top of the list as far as things that has improved. You know, the getting up in the morning and, you know, I'm up at 1:15 in the morning, you know, and so, of course I do my workouts, prayer and all the other stuff, but most of this stuff became easier after I converted.
Mashallah,
you know.
mashallah. So, what do you think about Hajj, one of the pillars of Islam? Are you planning to go to that lens?
Inshallah. So I have.
Did you plan it? I mean, did you?
Not yet, but in the men's meeting, we're talking about it, and so they want to start setting some dates with some things that we've been talking about. Yeah. So it's on the list.
Okay.
I don't have a date yet though.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you noticed, but I kind of changed when I said that because,
yes,
man, I can only imagine how I feel just enter into that place.
Of course.
You know, have you
never?
Yeah. So we need to talk, huh?
Yeah, sure.
It's expensive though.
It's expensive, yeah, but I know a lot of stories by the internet that people saying that Allah usually is inviting you to because there's a lot of rich people, they just can't go there for some reason, you know, they trying to do, or just Allah didn't invite them, you know, that's the point.
All right.
Inshallah, we'll have to go there.
Yeah.
At least once in our life. It's one of the pillar. I wish you that you're gonna join with group of brothers and we'll go in visit that place.
Yeah, man. Inshallah, man. That's on the list, man. I see the people's reaction.
Yeah.
When they get there, man, and it's so good. Like you're happy for them. You're genuinely happy for them that they made it there. You know, I was watching a video on YouTube, and it was a young brother. So I think his name's Sheikh Uthman in San Diego. So he went to Chicago, and they have this place called O Block.
O Block, I know. I've seen that video.
Yeah. So a lot of the brothers converted, right? And they said that, man, it's just changed there. But they took that trip, man, to Mecca, and man, I could feel the joy, and again, man, even though I can't make it today, I'm just genuinely happy for anybody that make it there.
Of course.
You know, it's they're our brothers and our sisters, man, and the women go too, right? Women?
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So, I speak on the brothers, but watching my brothers out there, man, and just knowing that there's a reality out there that is possible, that it can be done. Like, this is not like this, just a fantasy. It could be done. The same thing, like I was saying with Malcolm X.
Oh, yeah.
It changed his life.
Yes.
So I watched Malcolm X last year. Again, I watched it 20 times, but I watched it for the first time as a Muslim about a year ago, and it was completely different.
As long as I know, there was a Elijah Muhammad, right?
Yeah.
It's like a prophet?
I think he was a self-proclaimed prophet. I'm not sure, but...
I mean, that's their
but
version, right?
Yeah. But I noticed, like, in the movie that that the Nation of Islam, I think they prayed different, But what got my attention was when he went to Mecca. That's what really got my attention. See, now I can relate to it. Yeah. I noticed that he started praying, and he was praying like we pray. I noticed that he grew his beard. I noticed that he started speaking Arabic. This is once he went to Mecca, and he wasn't there for 1 or 2 days. He was there for a while.
You've seen the truth.
Yeah. So that's when the true transformation happened. So I just can only imagine. Like, I'm just getting goosebumps just thinking about walking.
Yeah, I heard that he actually, like, he's like Muhammad Ali in some cases, like for Americans. For
Malcolm X?
For black Americans, I mean.
Malcolm X?
Malcolm X, yeah, because he was, as long as I know, he was like trying to protect black Americans, right?
So here go the thing, though. So with Malcolm X in the Nation of Islam, at that time it was needed. It was more political.
Yeah.
So it was needed for that time. So
to be united.
Yeah. So Elijah Muhammad was, I don't want to say he was needed at the time, but that's what we needed as a community, because of all the stuff that was happening, within our community. Then when Malcolm X went to Mecca, he woke up and realized that he was preaching racism. So
it's only for black people.
Right. So when he came back, he went back to the community and he said,
I'm not with you, I'm not part of you, right?
No. Well, I don't know if he said that, but he said, let me tell you about the true Islam. He's telling the black people in our community, I was praying beside whites, blacks, Hispanics. So he's not saying you guys are liars. He's saying that I know the truth now. So he's exposing the Nation of Islam now and saying that this is not, he didn't say it, he might have said it, but he's saying that you guys been told a lie. There is no racism. This is for mankind. And so Elijah Muhammad knew that Malcolm X was powerful. Like, he knew how to get the crowd moving.
Yeah.
He knew people.
He was really intelligent.
He was really intelligent. So people started leaving the Nation of Islam, and they started converting to Islam.
MashaAllah.
And Elijah Muhammad didn't like that. So, of course, I think, and I don't know, you hear so many stories, but he coordinated with the FBI and they ended up killing him. And see, Martin Luther King was a Christian and he was corrupted. And yes, I'm saying that on record. He was corrupted, the same way the book was corrupted. So Martin Luther King, he was getting checks from the government, and they was controlling what he said. So when they say turn the other cheek, love your enemy, So what he taught was for our people is to not fight back, just accept the abuse. Yeah, you know, that's what he taught. You know, so with Martin Luther King, this goes way back to the slavery days. Back in the days in slavery, when the slaves, you know, they used to get kind of rowdy, like they ready to fight their masters. They ready to, to take over. So they used to have this one minister, this one black Christian dude that they used to take from plantation to plantation, and he'll preach the Bible, and he'll calm everybody down. And that's what that's what Martin Luther King was used for, to calm us black people down. But Martin Luther King was drinking, smoking cigarettes. He was cheating on his wife. He was getting a paycheck from the government. So one of the last things that Martin Luther King said was that, and you can look it up, but he said, "I'm afraid that I've been leading my people to a burning building."
Oh.
And then he got killed.
Oh.
So he was waking up in the end.
Yes.
You know, but they used him. Now, Malcolm X, they couldn't corrupt.
You guys have a lot of secrets in the United States.
Oh yeah. Oh man, it's so much
crazy.
And you know what? It says it in the Bible. It says that money, for the love of money, is the root of all evil. Money. It's about money.
It's all about money.
It's money, man.
I see.
That's all they care about. And that's why, for me, don't get me wrong, I like to have my bills paid.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm not going to sell my soul for money.
Yeah, that's.
I'm not, call halal, haram. You know, I'm going to treat everybody the same. You know, I'm not willing to sell my soul just to pay a bill.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to treat I had a lady that came here the other day. She gave me extra $20.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, like a tip?
No, by accident.
Oh.
Yeah, so I ran out to the parking lot and said, "You gave me extra $20." You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You know, because I know that I'll be rewarded for that. It's just the honest thing to do.
Yes.
That $20 I could have kept for myself. Later on, I'll lose $200.
Yeah, sure.
You know?
Allah already created like a risk for you. You cannot,
Yeah.
It's already written.
Yeah. So, yeah, man, when it came to Malcolm X, when he was with the Nation of Islam, like I said, it was needed for that time, because we were going through a lot as a community. You know, we were being raped. We were being murdered. I mean, they was like hanging black people up by, in public, like, and I mean, it was bad. I mean, of course, as a black male, I've dealt with racism. People, I've been called, words that was offensive plenty of times,
You right now 50.
I'm 50.
50 years old.
Yes, sir.
And what year was Malcolm X revealed? Like when he was actually?
I believe Malcolm X was the early 60s. I think he might have died, I want to say in 65, maybe 1965.
Oh.
Yeah. And so, like, even with my grandmother, my grandmother's, she's 90 years old. And I mean, she can tell you some stories, man. And she still talk like she's back in those days.
There you go.
Yeah, she still talk like she's back in. And my mom, of course, she was, growing up Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Day. My mom was born, and she passed away now, but she was born, I think, in 1954 or something like that. So she was raised up in those days, and my mom taught us racism. My mom told us to hate white people. So I carried that for a long time.
Yeah.
A long time, and of course things change over time. Even when I entered Islam, I in my opinion, I wouldn't have called it at the time. I wouldn't have called it racism, but I still carried a little bit in me, and it wasn't saying I hate you people. It was more saying, I think that my sons should marry black women, and for me, there was nothing wrong with that. Because, I want black grandbabies. At the time, that's how I was thinking. But, My kids, my sons married who they love.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, it's not about color, it's about aqidah, your faith. When you're the same aqidah, even if you're gonna find a black woman, maybe she's not your way of, she's not following the way of your life.
Yeah.
She's not following Islam.
Right.
And end up your kids not gonna be Muslims, and you're like,
Right.
"Okay, I have a black wife, but I don't have that kids that I want."
Yeah. The thing that to be transparent with you, I think the one thing that I hold against the Muslims today is where was the dawah when we were young?
Oh yeah.
And I've asked some older gentlemen the same questions. I don't think they answered it clearly, but where were you guys when we were young?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, what? How come nobody was teaching us Islam?
Yes.
Like, I don't remember anybody. Like, I wish I could. I mean, now, the Nation of Islam was strong. They were out there representing. They was selling bean pies, and they was handing out their newspapers and stuff like that. So we knew Nation of Islam, and I got into Nation of Islam, not officially, but for Nation of Islam, it was protecting your people. Of course, I was.
Yes.
I would consider myself as a racist then, so it was easy for it to be Nation of Islam.
Yes.
But where was the Muslims at? Like, and I mean, honestly, I hope one day I can get the answer to that, because this is what I searched for when I was young.
Yeah.
Had somebody took me to a masjid as a child, and I know that, Allah is the best of planners, but I think to myself, like, how many things I would have avoided through Islam? How many trials and tribulations that I could have just walked straight through or around through Islam?
You know what I mean? I have good friends. They are not Muslims. I invited them to the mosque, and I tried my best. I invited them to see how our people, our community, living, how they treat each other. I gave them information. I gave them Quran in the Russian language as well. But I found, like, if Allah doesn't want, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like, my friend told me, hey, it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's just you tried your best, but at the end of the day, only Allah will guide them.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so.
Because I just watched a video. I was just telling my son, I watched a video, and I'm not going to put the guy on blast, but he's a popular guy on YouTube, a Muslim brother. And in the beginning of the video, it says that this person, speaking on this Muslim guy, has guided this many people to Islam. And I took offense. I was offended when I seen that. It's not him that guided them to Islam. It was Allah that guided them to Islam.
Exactly.
Exactly. So when I seen it, I was like, that's not it. He's a good person. Don't get me wrong. They probably just worded it wrong. Hopefully they go back and, correct it. But he was used as a tool. That's it.
Yeah.
It's not you. It's Allah. And same thing with me.
Yes.
Like, I think about, again, the beginning.
Yes.
And all this time, that's what it, for me, and I'm saying this is just for me. This is my own perspective on my way of explaining it. I've never really been on the wrong path. I was always on the path that Allah put me on. So he knew what the final, he knew the direction I was going to go in. So the path that he planned for me is the path that brought me here. Some people say, well, what would you have done? Just like me saying, had I knew about Islam, when I was young, I'm saying for myself what I think that it would have been like. But how do we know that? I could have entered. I know some guys that been Muslims their whole life and walked away from it.
Yeah.
I heard a guy recently, say that he was just whatever reason why he left Islam. So you never know. Now, the benefit of me converting to Islam, in my opinion, the benefit is that I wasn't brainwashed with a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I was led to it honestly. You know, it wasn't nobody in my family. It was me seeking the truth for myself. You know, and that's what led me to Islam. You know, it wasn't, a family member that was a Muslim and, or my mom and dad. And it was the true search for for the truth. You know, that's what led me to Islam. You know, so I'm grateful for my path. I hate that I went through the things that I went through because, man, I've done a lot of damage. I mean, honestly, but it's gotten better.
Yeah, just remembered one story of one of the Sahaba. His name is Abu Zar al-Ghifari, if you heard about him.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So when he heard about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went there because he was believing in one God, but he wasn't a Muslim, and he was from tribe of Ghifari, and these guys was like they've been stopping caravans, caravans, and they be robbing them all the time. They've been scared. This guy was dangerous people. And then when he heard about him, and he went to the Mecca, and he didn't say anything that he's going to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when he got there, he ended up converting to Islam. He went to the Quraysh, to people not Muslims. They were not Muslims that time, and he said, "La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah," and they immediately start beating him. And then he left, and then came back again. He said, "There is La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad, his slave and prophet, messenger." And it's keep happening till Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "You have to leave because they're gonna kill you," or something like that. And he left. He left, and he's get back to his tribe, Ghifari. So he came back, and all of them start saying La ilaha illallah.
Wow.
All his tribe.
Wow.
And there was no excuse. Like, people was supposed to deal with them now, So I wish that we all gonna have brothers like that, inshallah.
That's powerful, man. And that's the thing about Islam, because it gives me hope.
Yeah.
Because, one of the things that I don't know why I didn't say it during my story, but my son, and I think I told you, one of the things that I told him, man, I meant it at the time, was I'll never become Muslim. And I stood on that, man. Like, I was so brainwashed and so stubborn and closed-minded that I was telling my son, I'll never become Muslim. I'll never become Muslim.
Wow.
And so we know the end of that story, but I like that part because I get to share that with people that tell me that they'll never become Muslim. So one particular person that's close to me that I deal with, she always say, "I'll never convert." Once upon a time, that might have hurt me. Like might have said, it's just, it is, she'll never be. But then Allah always remind me of myself. Those same words came out of my mouth, is I'll never be Muslim. So you just never know, and the person went to a revert dinner with me. I never thought they would do that. So you just never know, man, how you're going to be guided, man. And I'm starting to see, I get to see Islam spread within my family. So when I'm talking to my daughter, I got another son, he's 21. I hear him, as a matter of fact, the other day, I had one of the brothers walk in the shop, and I was on the phone with my son. So when the brother walked in, I said, my son was hanging up. He's like, "All right, Dad, I'll talk to you later." I said, "Yeah, I just had a brother walk in." And then I look at the brother and I said, "Assalamu alaikum." And then I hung up on my son, right? My son called back. He said, Walaikum salam, right? He thought I was saying it to him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But and this is how he responded to it, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
But he's not Muslim though. You know, again, it's your actions.
Yes.
People are paying attention.
Yes, yes.
You know, if they see something good over there, it got their attention. They saying, I want to know what it is about that person. You know, what changed you? What made you believe in Islam? Or they say, I don't want to be that type of Muslim. So, you know, I got to make it home too.
Yeah.
So I went to, I think I told you.
Yes.
And I'm gonna try to make this my last story, but so my wife had a fundraiser that she was doing, and so she asked the church, can she rent out the church for this fundraiser? And this is just 2 weeks ago. And so the church agreed to it, and so my wife, you know, she made tickets, and it was a talent show. And they're doing their fundraiser for women that's in recovery, women that deal with addictions. I wish, man, I'm not gonna say I wish she was there. So I went there. I kind of knew what type of crowd it was gonna be, but I went there to support my wife. You know, we help her set up, and then some other stuff. And so, and then we had family there. I forgot. So, you know, the church, I don't care if you Christian or not, the church is considered a house of God. If I say this, God forgive me if I'm saying this wrong, but they were behaving like heathens. They're playing music that you would hear in a club. You know, they got this one song. I don't know exactly. I don't know if it's the name of the song, but I think it's called The Baddest Bee. You know, the B word, the baddest bee. This is in the church. You know what I'm saying? They're this is, I mean, curse words,
Yes, yes.
rap music.
Yeah.
There were some lesbians that was, you know, they were like the host, you know, like they were doing the DJing. They up there flirting with each other. This is in the house of God, right? And me and my son Nate, that's Muslim, he was there too. Now keep in mind, we're not participating, you know, we're not, you know, up there. You know, prayer comes in, you know, so we go find a little closet and we go in there and pray. You know, this is a Muslim practice, you know what I'm saying? You know, we go in there and pray, and I know people are paying attention, you know, because I had to go to the car to get my prayer rug. So of course I walked through there. I told Nate I should have put it on my head and walked through there, but you know, so they're paying attention. But this is discipline with Muslim, right? And we even gave dawah, honestly, to a couple people. Then I found out there's a couple points I'm gonna make, but then I found out the pastor was there.
Oh.
You know? And I'm thinking to myself, this is the house of God. The pastor allow this behavior in the house of God? Imagine me and you renting the masjid, and the imam come, and we got speakers set up. Yeah. We, you know, man, we would get stoned to death. You know? Yes. Man, I'm not going to say the rest of what I want to say because I don't want to backbite, but how do I say it in a respectful way? I'm just going to leave it at that, but this is in the house of God. Yes. When I went to sleep that night, I just thought real hard, like, wait a minute, that was in the church. Like, people forgot they was at the church. There was cursing. There was, you know, doing just, yeah, this is in the house of God, but nobody found that wrong. Nobody said, wait a minute, guys. You know, there was no prayer, nothing. You know, that this is why
it's like a party.
That's it, like a club, man. And this is one of the things that I respect in Islam. You know, and the same thing like when the women go to church, you know, the men, they hugging the women, and you know, the women go, I mean, literally, man, women are going in clothes that's exposing their bodies. This is in the church. You know, and my wife, we don't discuss it no more, but that's where she gets frustrated when I talk about this stuff. You know, I tell her it's not even permissible for me to touch other women. Don't get me wrong. I do have challenges where you shake a woman's hand or stuff like that. I try to not, anyway, I'm working on it. I don't need to, you know, but this is in the house of God, man, and you seeing And this is why I'm telling my wife, I'm safe in the masjid. I'm safe. I don't have to worry about none of that. I haven't, we don't worry about women being up under us. We don't worry about going to them, hugging them. We don't worry about being. I seen a brother yesterday during iftar. Mm-hmm. He was going downstairs. I don't know what he was going downstairs to do, but he went down there. It was nothing but women down there. He flew back upstairs. He was like, man, there ain't nothing but women down there. Uh-huh. This is discipline.
Yeah.
This is our practice.
Discipline, respect to others, wives, daughters. So there was a story of one of the non-Muslim came to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that time. I mean, and he said, "Why I cannot do zina, like to have a like bad stuff with other women's?" He said, "Do you have a mother? Do you have a wife? Do you have a daughter?" He said, "Yes, I have all of them." He said, "Is that okay if someone gonna approach and do with your wife, with your daughter, with your mother?" He said, "No." Then why you have to do that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's it. It was quick, quick answer.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I haven't talked to him in a while, but I have my wife cousin. Mm-hmm. And every now and then I give him dawah. We go eat, and we're talking about same-sex marriage. I pretty much told him, I forgot exactly what I said, but I explained to him that Allah knows best. We might not understand, you know what I'm saying? But he could be protecting us from something, you know what I'm saying? So we went into that, and then we talked about things like pornography, right? Mm-hmm. And it's weird that you say that because I asked him, I said, he's like, I don't see if it's not hurting anybody. I said, well, what if it was your mom on there? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's like, I said, what if it was your daughter, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, what if it was your grandchild? Yeah. And he was like, yeah, you got a point. You know what I'm saying? Yes. Like a lot of people think it's okay as long as it's not harming them. Mm-hmm. But when they hit close to home, it's different. Same thing with my wife, they have this thing where everybody hug each other. Mm-hmm. I'm not okay with it. And she knows I'm not. Those same women, they're eyeballing me.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, they're eyeballing me. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Those same women. And so like when my wife came to the masjid, the women sat over there, the men sat there, and we still had a good time. You know what I'm saying? Nobody was thinking about them over there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but again, shaitan. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Shaitan take that thing that God orders and make it hateful. So when you tell these people, I want to say it the right way, but when you express to them how it should be, they get offended because Shaitan makes it seem wrong. I mean, make it seem wrong. But see, we have an understanding, and see, the problem is again, they don't want to open that door.
Last question: what you gonna say if you're gonna see our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in real life now?
What would I say?
Yeah.
Is there a right or wrong answer to it? I'm just kidding. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I mean, that's a hard question because it's just hard because it's so much to say. But I think I'm almost afraid to give the wrong. It'd be thank you. It'd just be thank you because I know it's Allah that guides us, but he sacrificed himself, man, for mankind to carry that message. The same thing that we deal with, like all these issues that we talk about today, he dealt with the exact same thing, to glorify God, you know what I'm saying? He dealt with the same thing that we, that's what's amazing about the story of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Everything that we talked about, he dealt with. Everything. When you hear the stories, man, it's everything that we talked about, he's dealt with. So I would thank him, man, just for for his submission, for being an example. That's what I would thank him for, being that example and to deliver that message to us, because I'm pretty sure he had a choice. You know, like they said, they offer him money, they offer him girls, and he turned all that down for mankind. I mean, honestly, like I get emotional when I say that, because if it wasn't for the prophet, peace be upon him, man, would I know Islam? You know, would we know the Quran? You know, look how many people are quick to judge. I mean, and I don't want to preach, but what did he do wrong? You know, he fought the oppressors. So what was the wrong in that? The same thing that we're doing today is fighting the oppressors. You know, he was the example, and he was the final example. He's the messenger that brought the true message, the message that we're all searching for. He brought that. You know, so thank you might not even be good enough. Just to be in his presence is an honor. So again, I think about, we can sit here at this table and we can talk about everything, and he experienced everything that we talked about. You know, I was telling somebody the other day about him he was digging a hole, and he had stones on his belly, man, because he was so hungry, man. You know, I'm like, you know, I mean, even with him when he was digging the ditches, man, he was doing the work of what they say 8 or 9 men, and you know, he was the, you know, I don't want to say sacrifice, man, but he was the example, man, and you know, and I don't put him, you know, I know they say, you know, all prophets are the same, but you know, he actually, you know, when it came to marriage, when it came to politics, divorce, he was the example. You know, he was the answer. So again, I wouldn't, it's hard for me to say what I would say, but just to be in his presence. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, that's good enough. That's good enough. I say that, man, out of love and respect, man, but just being in his presence is telling you something, man. Can you imagine? Just being, I mean, think about it, man. I'm sorry, but try to put yourself in front of the prophet. Yeah. Peace be upon him. Just in his presence. This is the guy that we've heard about, that we read about, that we studied, his hadiths. You know, when we put on our shoes, we think about. And now he's standing in front of me. Yes. Come on, man. I'm sorry, man, but that's a good question. That's a really good question, man. That one got me. That's a good question. You set me up, man.
Everybody becomes very sensitive. Every brother and sister I know, when it comes to this question, when you just imagine for a second, like how it can be that conversation and the meeting, and like it's something, I think you just imagine it. Imagine if you're gonna meet him.
Man.
That's why people like really was like sacrificing themselves, like for the sake of Allah, and because of the Prophet Muhammad was close to them. They were close, nearby, and it was something, I think. It's not like it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
Okay, brother. Thank you so much for having. Coming.
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
There you go.
Yeah.